I just always get so curious about what it would take for someone like Jax Taylor to truly heal and whether that's something that's actually possible. Jax, to me, yes, he's someone who does like a lot of really problematic, cruel, and hurtful things to people. But even beyond that, it's like what I notice about him is that he doesn't fully seem tapped into reality. Like, it really feels like there are certain synapses missing where he truly doesn't take in the information that's coming to him. So like an example that comes to me is just how he was at the beginning of the season, and even still at the reunion, he was getting so angry at Tom for not reaching out to him and not being there for him with regards to the wedding plans. But then literally there's footage in the show of Tom Sandoval pointing to his cell phone and saying, no, Jax, look, I texted you, like I was there for you. And then Jax sits there and says, oh, well, I don't know that I got it. And then Tom says, no, look, you responded right here. And then it's like there's a flicker of a moment maybe where Jax takes it in, but you kind of see there's like a way that it doesn't fully process. And then I just think like on an even bigger level, it just seems like he can't grasp that there are things that he does that really has a destructive impact on people. You know, like for example, texting the rage text, disinviting people from the party, you know, being this sort of difficult, bratty guy. And then when people have a response to his behavior, he gets so... It's like there's no connection in his mind between his own behavior and his own destructive actions and then what then comes back towards him. And then he's so quick to point the finger at other people and tell them, like, you're a bad person, with no seeming awareness of his own part or responsibility or culpability in these situations. So in the place where it like feels to me like there's really something almost like cognitively missing in him, how does someone like this heal? And is it even possible? Or has something kind of like gotten split or broken in him that maybe is beyond repair?
Yeah, you know, it's a good question, because really what brings people to an awareness that they need healing? You know, was somebody like him in particular who, if he's always pointing the finger outside himself, it's kind of clear at this point that he really only cares about himself. You know, he displays pretty deep narcissistic tendencies, in my opinion, and I'm no expert on that, but there's like an idea that whatever somebody is trying to bring to him in relationship is, from his opinion, completely distorted, right? So whatever somebody else is saying, he is defending himself completely and not actually interested in what the person is saying about him. He's kind of, in my opinion, what I see is that he feels deeply misunderstood.
Right.
You know, that there's whatever behaviors, whatever things that he does, it's actually, it's not the way it seems. It's not the way it looks.
I mean, I completely agree with you about this feeling inside of him where he feels misunderstood. And my sense of him always is kind of like that there's this place where he got sort of really deeply hurt or wronged that on some level he felt was never really answered for. And so it's almost like now there's this voice in him kind of saying like, well, they didn't have to answer for what they did. Why the hell should I have to answer for what I do? You know, like it's not fucking fair, basically, is what I hear from him. In order for him to heal, he would have to be willing to take ownership of the place inside that is all about himself and getting what's his, right? Because that place stems from a place where he got wounded, where something in him was sort of missed or wrongfully taken. And when I feel into that for him, like if Jax really were to go into a space where he went all the way into like, yeah, these are the bad things I do and I don't care, that it would then take him into this deep, place of powerlessness and vulnerability where like he could get hurt again, where he could get misunderstood again.
Exactly. And I think that's how you see this type of personality develop. I often look at him and imagine him being 5 or 7 or 8, sometimes 12, depending on what he's talking about. But, you know, when you really look at him from that younger place, it makes more sense. It's like he may be close to 40, but emotionally, I think his development stunted a really long time ago. And it's a very deeply painful thing to witness and to watch.
And it really does feel like when I feel into it, it just feels like his experience of powerlessness, it feels very, very intolerable. And it feels very young. And it feels very connected to his heart, actually.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The trick with him is because it's so young, whatever happened there for him, he's, you know, I don't find him that charming, but apparently, you know, a lot of people do. And I think that there's something there that he's learned how to really pretend. You know, there's a mimicking that happens if he gets information that says, oh, this is what you would say if you were somebody that was sorry. And then he says all the words. You know, I've heard him say things before, like, oh yeah, what I did was really wrong. But then he'll turn around and completely smash that idea. And that is going to require, I guess, somebody to, in terms of support, be able to really see his bullshit.
And I have to imagine, like if I were working with someone like him, I mean, I have to imagine you'd have to slow things down so much because, like, there is this processing piece where it just feels like he literally doesn't take in information. Like, his blinders are on, nose pointed to the ground, full steam ahead. Like, I won't hear it, I won't see it, I won't know it. And it's like, I think you'd have to slow things down so much just to even get him to, like, take in information and to even, like, help him start to feel how the information lands inside of himself.
Yes, and there's going to be layers of deep, like you mentioned rage, right? That's the first thing I think you would meet along the way when you start to slow things down.
Like, the process of slowing things down would actually help him to access the full depth of his violence and rage. Yeah.
Yes, and it would need to be held and contained and supported because there's obviously some whatever happened for him. I don't think he really got held in that. I think about it kind of also brain chemistry wise. Like, I don't know if he's on medication, but I have a sense that it would help him slow things down a little bit. This is the trick with people like them. That part of themselves that is very hyper or, you know, charged and passionate and, you know, moving out there, like that's where they get shit done. There's something about that they are so afraid to lose.
Mm-hmm.
And by slowing things down, I think he will, and maybe this is the time for him to do it, because naturally in his, you know, age, there's a way that he doesn't have to keep up with his 20s and 30s anymore. He's married, you know, maybe there's something about this time in his life that would actually invite a desire to just relax into himself a little bit. But I don't think he's ever really known how to do that. And I think he's terrified that if he lets go of any of this unprocessed aggression, you know, it's an aggression that he uses also to do whatever he does. Do you think he should be doing If you thought about, if you tapped into him, what do you think he would be good with?
Honestly, what came to me was like construction, like working with his hands, physical, like not in the head, it's embodied. He gets to channel his energy into something, and there's also something for me around like every day he sees his progress. You know what I mean? It's like every day he sees like the fruits of his creation, because Jax is not a long game kind of guy, you know? And it is almost like a young kid who's developing. Like, oh, you got to give them little things to do so that they can actually accomplish it and feel good about themselves. I think something like construction or something like that you can really see the daily progress and really sort of work with your hands, be embodied. I think that would really be good for him.
So I like the idea of it being inanimate in the beginning, because my thought was like trainer, you know, somebody who helps other people get fit or in their bodies more and sees progress. I agree. I like that idea, but I could see where it would be more about him.
Yeah.
In the context of training people than it would be about them. So I like this idea of having it be something constructive that doesn't involve other people necessarily.
Yeah, and then also where he has like a clearly defined role. I think there's just something, like if he were a trainer, right, he's still kind of like the boss. And there's a whole thing of like, I'm the number one guy. Like there's something that feels healing for him about having like a designated specific role in a hierarchy. And it's like, yeah, they're coworkers who are part of a team, but like no one, I mean, this is my imagination of the job. I don't actually know how construction sites work, but like no one's like breathing down his neck. You know what I mean? Or like no one, like he's just got his job to do and his part to do, and he can be good at it, but he's still a part of a team, but he's not the number one guy, but he can channel his energy. I don't know. That to me feels very like a good path for him while he's going and getting his therapeutic help.
Put him on a chain gang.
Well, something like that. Well, I think, did Jax say something like that? Am I totally making this up that he once said he would kind of like to go to prison?
I have no idea. I could see the part of him that knows that there is no way he can do this on his own.
Well, it's just so interesting because if he did say that, that is the flavor of what I was picking up on with the construction thing. It's like you have a role, there's a system, you show up, you know what you do, like you channel your energy into something embodied. Like, oh, you know, this is so funny because I've thought about this for him before. When I've kind of dropped into, you know, sometimes I drop into people's higher selves, and I always see him as kind of like a great like Roman soldier, and it's that flavor though of like, no, he's not the general, like he's a soldier, like he's one of many, because the thing about Jax is like, yeah, he's got this passion, like, you know, he'll fight for a cause, you know, and he'll be dutiful, and he's got that aggression as you're talking about. So he's like a perfect soldier, but you don't want him in charge. Like, you want to direct the energy. You don't want him making choices about where the energy goes. And I think some part of him kind of knows that. Like, I think he's sort of meant to follow. But I think the problem is in the world that he's in the world we live in, there's very few people. I don't know, there's just not like a structure or an institution right now that can really contain or direct his energy. And I also think that's part of what's going to make it so hard for him to get help is like, where can this man go where people are not going to be scared of his rage and are going to be willing to like hold space for like the true depth of violence of it? You know, it's like that's...
Oh God, I just had a very horrible image about Kentucky. You know, like you said, where is he going to go? And I just imagine him heading to Kentucky with Brittany and then being a good old boy in the South and going, no, that's not a good idea for Jax at all.
You mean, and that's where his energy ends up going?
When you say fight for a cause or, you know, like be co-opted for something, I could imagine him easily, you know, being kicked off by
like white supremacists.
White supremacy, yes, exactly. I have to say, like he's made for that.
Well, because he's got that vibe. Like we've seen it on the show. He definitely finds people to blame. And then he wants to annihilate them. I mean, it really feels that way. Like he wants to kill them. Like he wanted to kill James Kennedy. It felt like this season he wanted to kill Tom Stanton. Like you sometimes get that feeling with him. Like if he could get away with it, he would kill people.
Exactly.
And yeah, and that's the part too that I'm speaking of, where it's like, where does a guy like this go to get help? But there's so few healers or whatever people out there, who are going to be willing to hold space for that level of rage. And if Jax doesn't have a space where someone can hold space for that, he isn't going to return to wholeness.
Yeah, I think it would need to be somebody deeply conscious also, because there's a strong kind of masculine aggression that is so needed and could be used for something so constructive, like you said.
As we talk, it's like I do get this sense of like, oh, Jax, from a destiny perspective or like a karma perspective, like it does really sort of feel like he came into this life with this sort of like aggressive, charged energy that could be directed towards the greater good, and like that there is this space that he inhabits or is sort of meant to inhabit as like a follower. Like it almost feels like, he was not meant to necessarily be the brightest bulb. You know what I mean? That he really was meant to be like this dutiful soldier. And it's sort of like his life task is around like, where are you going to go with this energy? Like, are you going to fall in line, or are you just going to be like this destructive force of rage?
Well, he would definitely have to be taken to his knees.
Yeah.
I there's a few things that really tried, even through the show anyway, to help him see something. And, the whole shoplifting thing, when his dad died, there's just a few things there that had the potential to actually bring him down. And he managed to not really take a knee. And I think if I see anything in terms of what he would need to engage in a real process around healing a split, he would have to find some humility and be humbled.
And that's the danger with all these people being on the show. It's like, as long as they're on the show, there's something that keeps them from being fully humbled because they're rich and famous and have notoriety.
Oh God, JD, maybe we're responsible for his split. We're watching this shit. We're a part of this.
We are a part of it. I mean, I don't disagree with that. We are a part of it. But the good news is one day the show will be over, and we'll see, because like we did see how extremely he kind of contracted after the wedding. So, if the show ends or if he gets fired and that restlessness really takes hold of him and he starts really driving his life into the ground, maybe that will be the point, where he finally becomes willing. But then he has to find someone who can actually hold space for him. So, in some ways I feel compassion for him, because it's like he has his work cut out for him.
Totally.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I saw that at the end of this season. It was a little sad. I think he really started looking around and saying, I am, like, this part of my life should be over. I should not be bartending right now. Like, I should be something else. I wanted something else for myself. And I think where you said at the top of the call, his lack of being able to be in reality, I don't think he sees himself very clearly. What he does when he sees that picture of him participating in something that he hates, he's looking at all the younger crew coming in and he's like, I'm not you, but here I am standing here doing the same thing as you. He doesn't see who he is there. He thinks that he's the star of the show, or he thinks that he's the reason that they're there, instead of, wait, maybe my time
is up.
I think he realizes his time should be over, like he should be moving on to something else. I just don't think he really knows.
The one thing I'll say that I'm still so drawn to with him is like the role his father plays in all of this. Like the way that he deifies his dead father and now demonizes his mother. And then when I was feeling into like this place where he got hurt that just felt so powerless, I just sort of felt the presence of his father, and I was just trying to feel into like, what am I feeling here? I don't know that I get the sense that it was his father who hurt him, but something about his father not taking a stand for him or somehow being like a passive witness. But there's something that Jax doesn't want to see when it comes to his father.
Yeah. Yeah, and when I think about that, I think he saw where his father was powerless to his mother somewhere. Like, I feel like mom held a lot of power in the family dynamic. And like you said, dad did not kind of stand up for Jax, but probably gave Jax a lot of, you know, one-on-one time. Like, this is what you got to do with the women. Make the woman happy and you'll be okay. But it's like never really empowered. I don't think he maybe was empowered in his relationships in some way, and then kind of passed that along to Jax. And Jax might have been where he made some sort of young decision. I will never be in a relationship like that. I will never be controlled by a woman.
And then the woman kind of becomes the demon, and the man kind of the mother became the demon, and the father became like the hero who was always there for him.
Yeah, the demon and the obsession, right? Whatever he didn't get from his mom, that kind of, I have a feeling she didn't really give him a sense that he was, like, he's deeply insecure. There wasn't like a strong, nurturing vibe there.
And then it's almost something like if he lets himself know some of his issues with his father, it's almost like then he just feels so alone and like there's no one to count on. Which brings the kind of him back to the powerlessness. And then like if I kind of feel into that, it's sort of the place of like, why doesn't anyone love me? Like the young place of like, yeah, there's no one here for me, no one loves me, I'm all alone in this.
Definitely some sort of betrayal. Definitely there's some way that he was either triangulated or deeply hurt by somebody that he counted on for something at a young age.
Let's say Jax sort of developmentally stopped at this young age, and you know that's why we're seeing a lot of what we're seeing. What causes one person to get so developmentally stopped at an age of wounding, whereas other people can kind of continue to emotionally mature beyond the age of like deep wounding?
Depends on a lot of things. There's so many factors around, you know, like where he was developmentally at the time. If you felt into his attachment style, what would you say that is?
I mean, I think it's interesting from the point of view, like in the place where I sort of like, on a more psychic or intuitive level, kind of feel him as someone who sort of came into this lifetime as someone who's kind of meant to follow and to channel his energy in that way. Like, in a way, it kind of makes sense to me. It's like there's something almost simple about him, like intellectually, you know what I mean? Or simple about him emotionally. Which actually also feeds in, because I do think there are times where Jax is the unlikely voice of reason. Like, I do think there are times where he really sees things and he is actually able to call a spade in his own Jax way. And I think it's part of that simpleness. Like, there's a way that he kind of just sees through stuff. But I could also see that very simpleness contributing to like, kind of like, okay, like I'm not going to kind of mature much beyond this point in time.
Maybe what happened was he got dropped into some sort of disorganized space that did not hold that channel for him to really be in that simplified, oh, I do this task and I do it well, and then it's over. It feels like he's got something highly disorganized around him, and maybe his environment somehow participated in that. Maybe it was a disorganized environment, and if he came predisposed with simplicity, it didn't really nurture or somehow help him have that in a way. And then he became dysregulated, you know?
Yes, that, when you say that, I feel the truth. Like, that makes so much sense to me, and it feels really true to me. And then where I go with that is, so like Jax sort of comes in with his essence, right? And then he's in this environment that's kind of dysregulated and doesn't support it. And so he doesn't like thrive in it completely. And then that gets turned against him.
Yeah.
By mom. And dad's kind of there passive. And that's the place where Jax starts feeling misunderstood. And it's like
frustrated.
Yeah, like I was just about to say, the words I'm hearing is like, what the fuck is going on here? Like, if you're Jax and you're this kind of simple, straightforward energy, and you can see things and name things from that place of simplicity, and then there is this kind of like disorganized chaos around you, and then you're getting punished for it, I can really sort of hear that voice of like, what the fuck is going on here? And like, and you're letting her get away with this? Like, you know, and then that's kind of where, yeah, it's where the template gets laid. And then you have this kid, this essence with all this sort of charged, aggressive energy. And where's that gonna go? You know what I mean? It turns into like the rage.
Oh yeah, and then that's where he would give up and lose his power, and then start looking outside of himself to others,
right,
to learn how to behave, because the way that he naturally would want to do that is not somehow mirrored back to him as good and right and okay. And so then it's like he has to be more than he is. And so he's constantly seeking out this reflection that says, oh, you're amazing. You're good looking, you're this, you're that.
It suddenly does feel to me like, oh, he's like a soldier looking for a cause.
Yeah.
You know, that's like really what it feels like. And just so angry.
Sad.
Yeah, it is sad. And like so angry that there's no one kind of coming in and saying like, you know, basically, okay, soldier, fall in line. This is what you do, you know?
Don't you feel that? It's like, if I hear his voice, it's like, fucking somebody help me.
Well, and again, that's...
Tell me what to do.
I don't know if I'm making this up, but like I just come back to this. Either he really said this or I'm inventing this, that part of him would want to go to prison. It makes so much sense in this context.
I can imagine him just basically saying, look, I'll do whatever, just tell me what it is.
I feel like that's where you can feel his heart. Like I feel his heart there. Like I feel... Absolutely. Yeah, like the place where he wants to go to prison, that like unconscious place where he's saying, someone tell me what to do. It's like, that's where I feel his heart. And then I do feel even more compassion for him, because I'm just like, oh my God, you are lost. Like, you aren't a leader. You're looking for someone to follow. You're looking to channel this energy. And there's just, you have no clue where to put it.
And I was thinking about Lisa Vanderpump's role here with him, because it kind of feels like he turned against her at some point, and I feel like maybe she was that person. You know how she loves to tell people, look, you just need to do this. And I think he was doing that, and I think she betrayed him somewhere down the road, or he felt betrayed by her somewhere down the road with all of his fuck-ups, because she gave up on him. She was the general. She was the person that was saying, just put your head down, just do all this. He was doing it in the beginning, and then he just kept fucking up, and I think eventually she just kind of wrote him off. And I think that what I saw like this season, like whenever Jax, you just need to do, he would be like, you know, like, you can't tell me what to do, I'm going to do it my way.
Yeah, and I think also it's just like she's also just such a problematic leader in the first place. You know, it's just it's such a symptom of like he doesn't know where to go, you know, because Lisa Vanderpump is I mean, if you want to talk about narcissism, you know, she is not someone who's fighting for the greater good. You know, she's fighting for Lisa Vanderpump.
Exactly. And I think that, I mean, if you could have a superimposed hologram of maybe, you know, another version of what his mom might have been, that could have been in there.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And I feel like, you know, we might just have to tackle Lisa Vanderpump at some point. I feel like we might have to open up that door.
Okay.